Well, if you were to judge by the subjects that Justin Trudeau and his cabinet ministers put the most energy into, you'd think that the problems in Canada have nothing to do with, lack of pipelines or lack of jobs or inflation. You would think that all this government cares about is taking down statues of John A. Macdonald, of racism, and running public service announcements against Canadians for being so racist and for censoring. I mean, you would think that this government is obsessed by being woke and attacking all critics as racist, and you'd be right. And one of these subjects that this government has put more energy into than anything else is a censorship and government regulation bill that was rammed through the House of Commons this week. It's called C-10. It'll amend how the CRTC regulator deals with the internet. It'll start to deal with the internet the same way it's dealt with traditional TV and radio companies and all the regulation that is attendant therewith. Joining us now to talk about it is our friend Andrew Lawton from TNC.news and the Andrew Lawton Show. Great to see you, Andrew.
As always, my pleasure, Ezra. Thank you.
I tell you, the amount of energy they put into this censorship bill, the amount of battles they fought, the effort they put to ram it through Parliament, I just think if they had put that towards something constructive, something to make us more prosperous or more happy or more peaceful, they could have done amazing things. But that's not as important to them as censoring their enemies.
Yeah, and you know what? I've often said that Bill C-10 is a 1-2 punch. It's part one of a 1-2 punch. The second part that we've learned about from the National Post this week, which is a bill that will go after what the Liberal government says is hate speech. And the reason this is so important, and I said this months ago, is that Bill C-10 laid a regulatory framework to start penalizing people that publish offending content as defined by this new bill that we haven't yet seen in much detail. And why that's so dangerous is because the government has already, through C-10, if it gets through the Senate, and I hope it doesn't before the Parliament rises for the summer, they've created a system where people that want to post videos on YouTube, maybe they want to be TikTok or Instagram influencers, maybe they want to maintain a blog, all of a sudden that is under the regulatory purview of the government. And as much as they like to say, oh, we're not going after content, wait till you see the next bill.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. I just saw that headline. We'll show it on the screen. I absolutely believe it. I had some role, a small role, along with Mark Stein, in repealing Section 13 of the Canadian Human Rights Act. You might recall that almost 20 years ago now, I mean, it's 15 years, at a little magazine I had called The Western Standard, we published the Danish cartoons of Mohammed. And that got me sucked into this whole human rights censorship business. I fought back, Mark Stein fought back. We tried to turn public opinion around, and because Stephen Harper had a majority government, wouldn't you know it, we actually managed to get the government to support a private member's bill to repeal Section 13. And just for those who don't know what that section is, it made it an offense to publish anything, quote, likely to expose a person to hatred or contempt. So it was a future tense crime. You publish something that's likely to make him have hard feelings about her. So it was an anti-feelings crime. There was no due process, and you didn't even have to prove anything happened. It's just it might in the future. You publish something which might cause him to be mad at her. It was a ridiculous law. We got it repealed. The Liberals want to bring it back.
Not just bring it back, but bring back a supercharged version of it. One of the big changes in the way people communicate online from 2006, 7, 8 until now is that the internet has been consolidated in a lot of ways. The independent blogs are less common. Most people's online speech is funneled through a YouTube, a Facebook, and all of these other platforms. And why this bill, as we know it now, is going to be worse than Section 13 is because it will give the government basically the mandate of demanding social media companies take down content. So the only thing that I think is worse than government censorship is government censorship with a state agent in big tech companies, which already are prone to censorship. And they're going to have 24 hours to zap whatever content the federal government says is offending. And there are two problems with this. Number one, the social media companies who don't want to deal with Canadian bureaucrats will just say, yeah, you want us to take it down, we'll take it down. The other issue is that social media companies that already want to censor content will use this law as an excuse and say, oh, well, we've had to draft a hate speech policy to conform with Canadian law. And whatever you may think of Mark Zuckerberg or Jack Dorsey or all these tech guys, you know what? Your grievance if they take down your content is with them. Well, when the government has put a policy in place that these people are complying with, you can't appeal that censorship to the government still. Your grievance is still with them, but they have this other policy to blame. So what this bill will do is still go after online speech, but it will do it in a way that makes big tech companies state enforcers of government speech codes, and this will not end well for anyone.
That's an excerpt from my daily show, The Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.